It is Tuesday on Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse with me here. A lot of times, usually we do this on Mondays, but we were both out of town, Patrick. I was in North Carolina, which I talked about a lot on Monday's show. You were in Massachusetts at Harvard for the Harvard St. Thomas football game. Have your knees recovered from the walk up to the press box yet?
I'll tell you, it was a little tough Sunday. I'll tell you that. It was. I was taking about 7 minutes to get up out of the chair, and then we flew back and in row 34,
Yeah.
middle seat and aisle and window seat, and I thought we were going to have to call the fire department to get me out of there. But I'm better today. I bounced back, but 102 steps from the bottom to the
Wow.
top, and you should go through these catacombs you use to get up there. I'm telling everybody, I saw an apparition of Grantland Rice on about the 70th step that I took back in these. There's probably sports writers who died on the way up there. And I thought I was going to be one of them, and it was quite the experience. But I said that they built that place in 1903, the shell of it, the concrete that they put in and stuff. And it's all benches now. And it's originally was 60-some thousand. Now it holds 36,000. But it's all benches. And I said, they put at least $5,000 into it since 1903. This place, it's a pretty well a dump, but they're proud of the fact that that they don't have these plush facilities for everybody. 42 varsity sports.
Wow.
Squash, sailing, everything known to imagine is a varsity sport there. 42 of them, and they got an athletic building about the size of the old Cook Hall. They don't exactly have plush facilities, but here's my favorite stat though.
Okay.
From the whole trip. St. Thomas has 80 acres. Harvard has over 5,000.
What? 5,000 acres?
Yes, they have.
Oh my goodness.
Sprawling thing. So they have all these open spaces back there along the river and all these places. But yeah, St. Thomas has got 80. They've got 5,000. So anyway, it was the Tommies got off to a pretty bad start. They could have had a touchdown on their first drive. The quarterback held the ball and didn't throw to an open receiver. First handoff, the other team gets the ball to 21. They hand it off, and the guy goes 79 yards. That's a bad start. So
yeah, I'd say so.
Just nothing tricky about it. Just kind of burst off tackle and went all the way, and that was a sign of bad things to come. But it was an experience. I'm glad I went. I talked to a couple of my buddies who. Dan Shaughnessy's a friend of mine. I talked to him and I told him I was there. And he said he had a daughter graduate there. He thinks it's the greatest place in the world. But I don't think he goes to too many games and climbs those 102 steps. So
No.
Anyway, it was an experience to say the least. So
they're proud of the fact that they don't put their money into athletics. It seems like that they remain steadfast academics first, the last institution in the country perhaps that has done that.
But they do have, as they say, unlimited
Yes.
They have they have 7,500 undergraduates. They're pretty good sized, and I bet they have more graduate students than that walking around there too. They got all these great, medical schools and law schools and all that stuff. So anyway, it's an impressive place. I've been over there once, but never to the extent I was this time. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I've been on the campus a few times just kind of to walk around and to hang out, but I dare say I've never really even paid attention to their athletic facilities. What's the game day atmosphere like?
Not much.
No,
not much on that day because I bet they didn't have 3,000 people.
Wow.
And there was about 700 Tommies there, and they might have had 3,000 Harvard people at the most. The students don't come, that maybe if they, when they're playing Yale or somebody, they might maybe come, but they didn't get too excited about playing St. Thomas. So St. Thomas was a lot more excited about playing them, but it's a great thing for, the Tommies to, Glenn Caruso all fired up to play him, and he wants to keep playing Ivy League schools, and that'd be that'd be fun because if you're going to compete at that level, the Pioneer League is probably you know Division II at best, but you should be able to compete with an Ivy League school. And second half wasn't as bad as the first half.
Yeah.
They actually made a few plays, but they got caught by surprise that team had as much speed as they had, and they did not they did not match up to the speed of Harvard. Harvard has good athletes, so
Yeah.
so it was fun. It was okay.
North Carolina has some good athletes, Patrick, including their quarterback. We had an up close look at him on Saturday. Man, he's something. He's good. He threw for over 400 yards against the Gophers. It was
Threw
interesting.
A couple of bad picks, didn't he?
He did.
I didn't see the game, but he did. He kept it. He managed to. If he'd hit those things, it would have really been a rout. I mean, you look at stats and everything, you wonder how the Gophers were actually in the game.
Yeah.
But he's a big old horse, man. He looks like he can take the beating, that's for sure. So
he can run too, though, which is kind of interesting. He's got some mobility to him. So
he's supposed to be the second pick behind the guy from Southern Cal. Is that it?
Yeah, he's supposed to be a top 5 pick. At least he should be the second quarterback taken, I would think. Yeah.
So anyway, the Gophers are. I know Chip was a big believer in the quarterback. The Gophers kid as a freshman, and he was mediocre in the opener, and I guess he was terrible against North Carolina. Huh?
Yeah, he was not good. He was not accurate. He was kind of throwing it all over the place. It was rough. I mean, it's probably too early. I think some of the inaccuracy is hurrying. Some of it looks like he just doesn't quite know when to take a little bit off, like the touch. But you do worry, like, I can't remember what his exact numbers were, but it was like maybe 11 for 29, 11 of 29 or something.
Yeah, right.
You can't, at a certain point, you don't really teach accuracy, right?
No.
Like that's kind of one of the hardest things I think to teach a quarterback is how to be more accurate. So I think we got to watch that for sure. And
Justin Fields.
Yeah.
He throws it where they are, not where they're going. That's the big problem with quarterbacks to me. The guy who can anticipate getting the ball out in front of people, behind people, where they can catch it.
Yep.
And obviously, this guy's a second year in the program, right? He's been in the. He wasn't a redshirt, isn't he? He's not a third year in the program.
I think he's third year. I'm trying to remember for sure.
Program.
Yeah, because he played last year. I don't think he was a true freshman when he played last year.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he's that's that. Luckily, they can go down and play poor, helpless Northwestern now, and the West looks worse. Their schedule looks pretty dang easy now. Michigan State. I mean, they got Ohio State and Michigan. Okay, they're going to lose those, but Michigan State is like fired the coach and given up, and Northwestern is a walkover now, like they used to be. And so you got, you got 6-3 as a possibility. I would think you split with Wisconsin and Iowa, you lose to Michigan, Ohio State. There's nobody else you should lose to. Illinois is bad, looks like. So, you got to beat them sometime, Bielema. So it's not, they'll go to another mediocre bowl game for sure, I would think.
Atmosphere in North Carolina, it was interesting. North Carolina is about like Minnesota, it feels like, in terms of football, where their football program is at. Their stadium is not particularly nice or new, but it's almost the exact size of Huntington Bank Stadium, like a little over 50,000. And, we were walking through a little bit early to get to the game, but I described to the people I was with, I described the game day atmosphere, the kind of the lead up to the atmosphere as one third football. Like there are some people definitely there for the football. There's 1/3 like Southern dance, like a cotillion, maybe like a kind of a feeling of a gathering for a fancy formal event, and like 1/3 10-year-old birthday party. So it was kind of a weird mix of like what they were trying, what the atmosphere they were trying to put forth. But I think North Carolina's a little bit excited now. They've got a good team this year, and it's not like going to an SEC school and seeing that, but it was
one
good.
Thing down there is it's not like Minnesota theoretically has got the entire state, at
Correct.
least in football, and North Carolina's got 4 schools within 30 miles of them
Yes, that's true.
playing the same conference. So it's a completely different thing. And you got a lot more people that hate North Carolina than love them. So
Yes.
that's part of the vibe down there. It's completely different. And I think how many Division I programs, and then when you throw in all the other ones,
Yeah.
basketball there's about 15 of them, and football there's probably 8 or 10. So it's not it's not like you don't have the captured audience. That's for sure that you do, and it's more of a basketball school, really.
Oh, for sure.
It's probably the one state in the union that one or 2 states in the union that basketball is more important than football. So anyway, I've never seen a football game down there. I've walked by the stadium, but it's a beautiful campus.
It is very nice.
Nice golf course. I played the golf course there. So
I wonder if we set a record Saturday for closest Big Ten games together, because Duke played Northwestern on the same day in Duke, and it's only.
I bet they had about 10,000 people for that game. For that game, the battle of the intellects there. But Duke's pretty good
though. Didn't they beat Clemson this year?
The weirdest thing about they beat Clemson. The weirdest thing about college football at this moment, look at the ratings. The conference that's breaking up has like 7 teams in the top 25, including Oregon State, Washington State, Washington, Oregon. That conference is loaded. I mean, Stanford's terrible and Cal's terrible, but Southern Cal's got the Heisman Trophy winner, and the conference that's giving it up is the best conference in the country right now, because the SEC is having a bad year.
Alabama's not much good.
They're losing a lot of games, so it's weird. It's really weird when you think that league is done.
Do you think?
I just don't. Oregon State, Washington State, and Stanford in the ACC. That's the goofiest thing.
Ridiculous. It's the wrong coast. Do you think they might just wake up one morning and be like, "What did we do? Why did I mean?" Or do you think they're just going to be cashing the checks and they don't care?
I guess they cash the check, but I really think that somehow this should have become a football thing, and that everything else should have stayed. The trouble is, football tries to hoard all its money. Like Fleck and over here at the U, they spend all the money they possibly can. We're talking about all the money we're bringing in, and they're paying for the other programs, blah, blah, blah. They should be playing a lot more for the other programs. They're wasting incredible amounts of money just because they're bringing it in so they feel like they should keep spending it. 22 assistant coaches. What a bunch of crap that is, or whatever it is. And they should, you should they shouldn't just be spending all the money and they can possibly spend. But that's the way the college football is operating now, that they figure since they're bringing in unlimited money, they should be able to spend unlimited money. So that's ridiculous.
Grand Casino would like to take a moment and salute the true football fan. The passion, the hope, the anticipation, that incomparable feeling of winning. Grand Casino would also like to take a moment to remind you that you can find all that anticipation, thrill, and winning at Grand Casino. Grand Casino, let your story begin.
Switching gears, I know from talking to you at the beginning of the show, and I anticipated it anyway, Henry Boucha, we learn overnight, basically right before that he's passed away, age 72. He predates me, obviously, but I know a lot of his backstory. What springs to mind as you kind of think about that life?
Well, I first saw him at Drake Arena in St. Paul when I was a senior year in high school. I just got to the St. Paul paper, and I went over in Drake Arena back then. Didn't have any heat in it, and I think they made the ice by opening the door. And it was I remember just a frozen December night, like I think it was during Christmas, basically. And they came down for a visit, and I'd heard about him. and I got to see him, and he was, I mean, you got to think, you know who his defensive partner was? Alan Hankslaven, who played 550 games in
Jeez.
the NHL and the WHA. So that this little town up there on the Lake of the Woods has got those two guys. But Henry was going to be with he had the maladies that took place. But in 1969 state hockey tournament, I haven't covered many of them. I kind of avoided it. But I always figured after I covered the best one ever, why bother to go any more of them? It was the best one ever, War Road Edina. First year at Met Center, first year that they replaced, that they left St. Paul. They went back when they built Civic Center. But it was the first time it became a statewide event, really, 1969, because they went to Met Center, and instead of having 9,000 people cramped into a dumpy little building over in St. Paul, it kind of became and then you ended up, the great attraction of the high school basketball tournament was always big versus small, when, like Edgerton 1960, a little tiny place,
Right.
wins the one class. And that tournament gave that hockey, that big versus small, War Road versus Edina for the state title game. And then when Henry got boarded by Jim Knutson, and he had to leave the game, kind of got a concussion. He lost the eardrum popped. They had to take that crowd. That could have been Indiana and Bobby Knight playing basketball against the Gophers. The crowd was so hostile towards Edina the rest of that night. 15,000. I mean, there were 3,000 Edina people there, but the other 12,000 were vicious against Edina. That they were against Edina anyway when the game started.
Right.
But after Henry got knocked out, but Henry's almost a tragic figure. Dave Forbes basically ruined the vision in his one eye with a stick out at Met Center, and Henry's had he had a drinking problem and everything. But I got to know him better the last 10, 12 years than I knew him when he played, and I covered him some, and he was really a good guy. I mean, he had all these obstacles in life. He always managed to be optimistic that something good was going to happen to him. He was. I had him on a radio show 2-3 times, and came in the studio, and he's just a guy that you really always wanted to root for. He had immense talent that ended up having it taken away from him in a long NHL career. Here's the first real sad thing is he was going to be a Gopher. 1969, the graduating class in 1969 had Mike Antonovich from Coleraine, who came to the U.
Yep.
Had Dean Blaze from International Falls, who came to the U, the Blazer. And Henry was supposed to be the third, and they couldn't get Henry into school because back then we worried about academics too much, and it was all class rank, and he wasn't a good student. He wasn't a good student up there. It wasn't the fact that he wasn't a smart guy. It was just he didn't. I think he just paid attention to hockey when he was a kid, and he got behind, and he had the low class rank, and they couldn't get him into school, and so he went up and played in Canada for a half a year or something. But if he'd come down and played 3 years with the Gophers, I mean, he would be, before he turned pro, if he'd played 3 years with the Gophers, he'd be a legend of legends, because if he'd been down there. Now, they didn't have great years. They had a good year in the first year, but they didn't have great years then. But if they had Boucha with Antonovich and Blaze, that would have been a precursor to Herbie winning the national championships, and that would have been quite the group. But it never happened. Sonmore tells some great stories about trying to recruit Henry back in the day, but one of his guys, it was all based on class rank and what your grades had been and classes you'd taken, and he had one of his recruiters up there, Georgie Lyon. They used to use you could use boosters as recruiters back then.
It's come full circle.
Georgie was up there to seal the deal, and he says, the only problem is we have to get somebody to tell the girl who thought she was going to be the valedictorian that she's going to be the salutatorian. They got to move Henry's class rank up to get him in school, but never came off. But he's, he was always, there was always talk of a documentary about Henry and stuff like this, and he became very outspoken for the Ojibways, and he did a lot of work for them, and he moved back and forth and all around, and had different jobs and sold real estate, and it was always, he never had any. He got a settlement from the
I saw that. Yeah,
NHL, supposedly $1 million, but by the time the lawyers took it, I don't know how much he got. But I don't want to say he was a sad character because he always was optimistic. He was always optimistic that something was right around the corner, and he was really a good guy. I liked him a lot, and he was immensely. He's still the best. I'm not an expert on high school hockey by any means, but he's the best I've ever seen. So anyway, it's too bad. And I had no idea. I talked to Jess Myers.
Yep.
Jess was a War Road guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
He said he'd seen him 2-3 months ago up there, and he looked frail, and but he didn't really know what was going on with him.
Sure.
But he looked like he kind of lived a hard life there for a while. So. Anyway, it was, we're trained on the river, man.
Yep.
Indian kid skating up and down the river and becoming a great hockey player.
Yeah, it's a tremendous story. I mean, you wish it would have turned out differently. Obviously, the play in the NHL that you talked about and referenced. Now, man, the old NHL is just wild. I was just looking at some of his old stats. Like one of his last seasons in the NHL was for a team that I, for some reason, never knew existed. The Kansas City Scouts. Who were the Kansas City Scouts?
They were the Avalanche, I believe. No, they were. Did they go to Quebec and then Quebec? No, they didn't.
I don't know.
Where did they go?
I'm going to look.
They went to. I can't remember.
I'm looking at. They became the New Jersey Devils.
Oh, yes, that's right. Were they an expansion team, though? I think they came from someplace else before that.
Yeah, they were an expansion team. They played. Looks like they played 2 years in Kansas City. Then they became the Colorado Rockies.
Yes,
and then Then they became New Jersey.
Yeah, they were the original Colorado Rockies. Was a hockey team.
How did I not remember that Kansas City was? I didn't that's just a small piece of hockey history.
Remember. I thought the Colorado team went to Kansas City, but maybe obviously I'm wrong.
They started in Kansas City, and the year he was there in 75, 76, they went 12, 56, and 12.
That's the way.
They had 3 different coaches.
That's the way expansion teams are supposed to be. None of this. Give Las Vegas the best team in history because they gave you a bunch of money. Las Vegas, 6 years, they've won 40 some. We've won 20 playoff games since the Wild got here. They've won like 50.
Yeah,
6 years. Expansion teams are supposed to stink. What happened to that?
Well, they sure did back then, especially the Kansas City one. Man, they were terrible. They had a coach that was 1-23-8 before they fired him.
How about Babcock getting fired about this thing? I mean, he's a crazy guy, but what was the deal? He just said, "Hey, here's a picture of my family. Let me see the picture of your family," and he ends up getting fired. It's I know he's a hardcore guy of all time, but what a weird deal. Unbelievable. I don't know. NHL is still behind the times, I think. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
I was, when I wrote about the Brad Maxwell when he died a week ago or so. There was some video of some of the fights he had, man.
Oh, yeah. It was
unbelievable the way they went at it. And then I get all these comments. Yeah, the NHL made a big mistake getting rid of fighting like this. Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
I don't know if the family of 4 from Woodbury wants to see a lot of blood on the ice. I don't know. Maybe some of them.
Yeah.
Patrick, let's scoot over to the Vikings for a bit because it sounds like they're going to sign this guard finally, Dalton Risner. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't just do it 3 weeks ago and maybe win one of these games with a better offensive line, but it sounds like they got him. Is I mean, it's not too late. They're only 0-2, but you look at the stats, Patrick, like 10% of the teams who start 0-2 rebound and make the playoffs. They lose Sunday, Patrick. What if they lose Sunday?
They're in trouble.
What if they lose Sunday? Because nobody comes back from 0-3.
One thing I've been pointing out, though, is with that stat that only 10% make it, but there's now extra team in the playoffs.
Correct.
Okay. So, and you're playing, and they're playing in the AL Central too. That helps.
That's true.
That helps. If they go 9-8, they're winning the division. Okay, because Detroit's an imposter, and the Bears are horrible, and the Packers aren't very good. So, the Chargers. The Chargers are going to fire their coach if they lose here.
Yes, they're just as desperate. They're 0-2 also.
Everybody thought, but here's the thing. LA's got a high-power offense, but they stink on defense. So I don't think you're going to be facing the pass rush that they've faced.
Right.
And you're going to have to be really bad to turn it over 4 times like you've been doing every other game. So, it should end up. I'm sure they'll move the ball against this defense, but it should be an actual high-scoring game, I would think. And if Cousins keeps throwing the ball and with the receivers they have and with the Chargers defense, they should score in the 30s, I would think. And I would think they're going to win the game, but it's no cinch. I mean, they can come out and last year they'd lost. They were 8-1 and had 2 fumbles lost. This year they're 0-2 and have 6 lost, right? And it was an interception. I mean, how about this rotten running game, though?
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's brutal. Dalvin is laughing, although not really, because
he fumbled the other day too.
He fumbled, and he's only making $3.5 million or something like that. I don't know what it is, but but our whole deal about we don't need Dalvin, you don't need a running back. Well, Madison is, he's getting, he's got some racial slurs aimed at him from idiots, but he hadn't done anything. So I don't know. They're actually, you look at that Philadelphia game and you look at the stats of that game, you wonder how as close as it was, how they were in the game. 39 minutes, right? Philadelphia had the ball 39 minutes or something.
Yeah. They ran it for 259 yards or something.
Yeah, they just ran the ball. So it's amazing as close as it is. But I don't know. They're defensively, the big change to Brian Flores isn't exactly worked yet. So we'll see if they. We'll see if that, they got to get something. Why don't they have Harrison Smith up there trying to stop the run and stuff? They must be terrified of their cornerbacks or something, that they are afraid to, they got to, get some guys up there and stop the run, for God's sake. So Harrison Smith should be another linebacker if a team's running against you like that, right? I don't know.
The line is Chargers by 1.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, a lot of people thought the Chargers were going to be good.
Yeah.
Can a team ever recover from blowing a 27-0 lead and was it 27-0 lead that they blew?
And I remember watching that game. Yeah, I remember watching that game in the U.S. Bank Stadium press box before the Vikings lost to the Giants. And everyone was like, "What is going on here? This is unbelievable."
Did you see somebody asked Daly about it at the press conference, and he got a little upset. He says, "Is this a carryover from blowing that 27?"
I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, somebody should have asked that question, but he's a former St. Thomas assistant.
That's right. That's right. Something he's got connections there.
He's but he's not gonna. Everybody was surprised he got back, that he didn't get fired this last offseason.
Yeah,
but he's definitely going out. What a terrible situation that team's in. They're the number 2 tenant. It's a beautiful stadium, but you're the number 2 tenant. The other team's keeping all the money. You could be in San Diego if you weren't such a bunch of idiots. So, but I don't know who I like in that game. I guess I like the Vikings because they're home. But that's the only reason. That's the only reason.
this is the way too premature chatter that's been starting already, and it's just because it's fun and because people need something to talk about when their team is 0-2. But like, at what point do the Vikings get to this season where if they keep losing, let's say they lose. I mean, let's say they lose Sunday and they're 0-3. Maybe that's not the point yet because you got some winnable games coming up. But like, let's say they get to a point where they're 1-5 or 2-5 or something like that, and the trade deadline's sitting right there. Like, do you think these guys would ever think about just unloading everybody, like unloading Cousins, unloading Hunter, and just being like, okay, this is finally a true rebuild?
That doesn't happen in the NFL. No, there's a trading deadline in the NFL. There's about 4 trades. They
True.
don't trade.
That's true.
They don't trade at all. No, they're not trading Cousins because nobody will. By then, unless somebody thinks they're going to the Super Bowl and then their quarterback gets
Jets,
hurt.
baby.
The Jets are not. They can't. No team in the world can afford to have 2 quarterbacks making that kind of money.
They can though, because Cousins would only cost them about $5 million by that point.
Oh well. I don't know. I mean, well, yes, and by that point, they're also going to be 2-5, just like you are.
That's probably true because Zach Wilson's terrible.
Yeah, boy, is he? He was how high a draft choice?
Number two overall.
Boy, there's been a lot of people wrong, haven't there? Trey Lance.
That should just be the name of this whole segment. Boy, there's been a lot of people wrong, haven't there?
Yeah, Justin Fields is terrible. And the Bears are back. Okay, now we can get the number one. We got to get the number 1 draft choice for the quarterback to get. Now we're going to get another quarterback that's going to be the franchise because we invested in this guy and he's terrible. Where'd Trey Lance end up?
Dallas, right? Didn't Dallas take him? Yeah, Dallas took him for a 4th-round pick.
And by the way, they look great, but then I remember they looked great last year, and all of a sudden went in the tank.
Yeah,
but Dak looks better, but Dak looked better last year. Then he was terrible for 5 games. So.
Their defense looks really good too. So they've got something cooking. They may, I'm not saying they're. Something always seems to happen to them, but they look awfully good so far.
Just remember that. I have a new theory, by the way. Everybody, I actually heard the Pete Nigerian and who's he on with Dave Schwartz, right? On WCCO, the old Sid show is now those 2 guys. And Schwartz was going on and on about how they don't try to fix their offensive line. They've let the offensive line go. Well, that's not true. They've taken a bunch of number 1s,
they have
a bunch of number 2s, and here's the problem: they don't all work out. It is the worst position to fill in sports, and because you're asking 315-pound men to perform acts that should be performed by 240 pounds. You're asking them to be much more athletic than 315-pound men can be. That's why they're getting hurt all the time. That's why David Bakhtiari, who the Packers keep year after year, plays 4 games a year. He's Byron Buxton, and they keep saying, well, Bakhtiari's hurt. Yeah, no kidding. He's always hurt. And the offensive line, whose offensive line makes it from start to finish through 17 games? Yeah. Nobody. Right. And, turns out Ingram can't play. But then it also turns out Darrisaw gets hurt. It also turned out O'Neal missed half of last season. They get hurt because they're huge men being asked to back in the day, you had 5 guys that kind of plowed straight ahead, and once in a while, a guy pulled. Now they got him trying to do all these things that huge men cannot do, and they're all getting hurt. And it's not because they've ignored the offensive line. It's because they, if you draft 5 of them at first or second, and turns out 2 of them aren't good. Yeah, you didn't ignore it. You were wrong.
Right. You were right sometimes. You were wrong sometimes, and that adds up to being pretty mediocre.
Yes, but it's not. They should have they should have as good a pair of tackles as there is in the league. But is Darsow going to be a guy who gets hurt all the time? I don't know.
Yeah,
He's been hurt now. He's been hurt 2 years in a row. So
I don't know.
But it's the worst. It's the worst job in sports being an offensive lineman. There's no doubt about it. So
you get all of the blame, none of the glory. It's yeah. By the way, I think going forward, we're going to have a segment every week called "Boy, there's sure been a lot of people wrong." I've decided right now. That's great.
Yes.
Speaking of boy, there's been. Go ahead. Yeah.
The Twinks, we were feeling pretty dang good.
That was my transition. Yeah.
Yesterday, until Correa had left after the first inning. So, and Joe Ryan is maybe not your third starter. So
who is? I was going to ask you that. Who is?
Maeda, but I bet right now it's Maeda. Because he's got savvy, if nothing else, but that stuff he throws is so mediocre.
Yeah.
But Joe Ryan has hit the wall, man. It's the league has figured him out. So they had him throwing more because they were hitting his fastball. They had him throwing more breaking balls yesterday. He can't throw his breaking ball for strikes, so he's getting behind in the count. So he's lost velocity and he just wore down. I think I don't know. But so you got two really good starters, but I don't know who the third starter is here for the playoffs. And you don't want to have to go into playoffs with Kyle Farmer as your shortstop, no matter what you're saying about Correa, ladies, as a hitter. But him, that didn't look good yesterday. All of a sudden, he has to leave after the first inning, and then all the quotes in today's paper are, this is I was feeling great. Now I feel terrible.
Yeah.
So it's that would be a bad deal if he went into the playoffs that way because. But aren't Royce Lewis's numbers incredible? Forget the grand slams and everything. His RBIs are amazing. He's over 50. Yeah, he's over 50 RBIs.
It seems like every time he comes up with people on base, he does. He clears them. It's unbelievable. And I don't know if that's some of this is just sample size, but some of it just seems like him. Like he wants to be up in those situations. He's the supremely confident but not arrogant athlete. I don't know. We're way ahead of it with him, but I see a trajectory for him of I already think he's one of their best leaders they've had in a long time. And leadership is,
he's not a lead by verbally yelling at anybody or anything. It's just by being a big personality and caring about everybody. I'm sure he's in that clubhouse running around at what you doing your day off kind of guy,
Right.
So he's been amazing. And I think we talked about this last time we were together, but the vibe of this team, he's changed the vibe. We like him. We like this team now because they have him. We didn't like him all summer because they couldn't get any hits.
Him.
Yeah. And people are, you're just feeling better about him. He's like, you got your Anthony Edwards and you got your Justin Jefferson, and now you got
Kirill Kaprizov.
Well, as a player,
sure, yeah, right, yeah.
But a lot of Kaprizov jerseys, and everybody likes him. And now the Twins got their guy,
they do.
Popular player. So Cincinnati, they looked terrible last night, but they're Cleveland's losing all the time, so they're in the playoffs. So it's not gonna be an easy draw, man, especially if it turns out to be Toronto. I don't know what's gonna happen. What one team's out, right? Seattle and Texas and Toronto. One of those three is not gonna be in. Right?
Or Houston, if Houston doesn't win.
But Houston is. Yeah, that's right. If Houston slipped down, but you're going to play number 6, right? So
you play 6. You play the
third wild card team.
The third wild card.
Not make any difference. It's going to be a good club.
Yeah, the third wild card is going to be like a 92-game winner this year. It's going to be just pretty good.
Yeah. So anyway, they're. But they're all of a sudden they're a little. The bullpen looks good, and they look a little thin in starting pitching. So
maybe
Louis Varland, as we talked about, Louis Varland has helped the bullpen a lot. I think we've been saying for a month that he's a reliever. Comes in and throws strikes instantly and throws heck, he's hitting 100 now. So the bullpen will be fine, but I don't know if you got a third starter for the playoffs.
Bullpen game. Who knows what they'll do? I don't know what they'll do if they get to that point.
Don't tell me that, please.
No, I mean, not a traditional bullpen game, but it could be the kind of game where 4 guys pitch because they don't love any of them.
And congratulations to Rocco. Enzo and Nino are the 2 kids.
Nice.
I texted him last night, and he responded. He says they're everybody's good. Enzo and Nino. And luckily, they have their mother's nose, he said. So, he seemed to be a happy man. So
that's good.
Got the 2 twins. I'm sure he'll take the rest of the Cincinnati series off and greet the team when they come home to play. Who? I don't know. They don't.
They've got a bunch of dogs at the end.
Losers,
the Angels, the
Oakland,
Rockies, right? And the Royals
Oakland.
Left, or A's. I can't remember. So it's 3 bad teams left.
The A's, yeah. All righty,
sir. Well, we'll have we'll get our Lynx talk on tomorrow's show. I've got Youngblood on, but we'll see if the Fighting Cheryls can get this thing done, Patrick.
Well, if they'll only listen to her, if they'll only pay attention, because we never get surprised. The other team throws the ball inside, and they have a better inside player than us and scores. They should never score inside though, because Cheryl told them they're going to try to score inside. So that's She hasn't been surprised. What would the record end up being?
19 and 21.
21 times they were fully prepared. They just didn't listen to her.
Unbelievable.
So, see, all right. See, if they only listen to her Wednesday, they're in good shape. See you.
See you, Patrick. Bye-bye.
Bye.